Book review of Sacred Sins, Devadasi Culture in Contemporary India, written by Arun Ezhuthachan and translated from Malayalam by Meera Gopinath. Sacred Sins by journalist and author Arun Ezhuthachan is a Sahitya Akademi Award-winning account of the Devadasi tradition still in practice today across India. I believed that the Devadasi tradition of dedicating girls to temples as dancers and workers was a practice of the past. That these girls and women may have been sexually exploited by priests and patrons of temples is easy to believe. For across time, across millennia, across geographies, and across religions, godmen and self-styled gurus have been exploiting women under the name of religion and in the guise of divine sanction. But imagine my horror when the book revealed that this horrific tradition of Devadasis was not only in practice today, but it was thriving. A bigger shock was that the central hub, the place where this practice is most prolific, is my home state of Karnataka in southern India. The book, Sacred Sins, Devadasis in Contemporary India, is a part journalistic account, part memoir, part travelogue, and part religious historical literature that explores where and how the Devadasi tradition is practiced in India today. A tradition that disproportionately affects the class and caste of girls and women located at the lowest rungs of the social hierarchy. The book is actually inspired by the author Arun Ezhuthachan's own journalistic investigation into the dancing girl establishments of Mangaluru in Karnataka in 2008. As part of his reportage, Arun visited Mangalore, where he happened to meet a woman who was given into sexual servitude to a temple in Karnataka as a child. She was a Devadasi. This shocking and happenstance encounter led to a spine-chilling 7 years of travel and discovery of one of India's biggest shames, the Devadasi tradition and the sexual abuse and exploitation of young girls, some as young as 10 years of age, and with speculations of unreported cases pertaining to girls much younger. The book, Sacred Sins, takes us on Arun's journey across India, trying to find and meeting with both practicing and cast-off Devadasis now reduced to begging and prostitution. We visit multiple places in Karnataka, including Mangalore, Uchangi, Davanagere, Kudligi, Soundatti, and Harapanahalli, listening to life stories of poverty, abuse, slavery, rape, and prostitution. We meet women who fought back against the system, sometimes escaping the vicious cycle of sexual slavery, and also helping their own children and the young children in their villages find safe havens away from their abusers. At other times, we meet women jaded and pessimistic after a lifetime of abuse as Devadasis, who were discarded by the temple after their young bodies grew old, no longer pleasing to the eyes and desires of the landlords and wealthy merchants, the patrons of the temples. We follow some of these women who are sold into prostitution by temple patrons in the red light districts of Sonagachi in Kolkata and Kamatipura in Mumbai and learn about their lives there. We see how sacred spaces for the worship of the divine feminine, such as Kali Ghat in Kolkata, doubles as one of India's oldest red light areas, where prostitution is viewed as a divinely blessed vocation. Then we visit Vrindavan, where the widowed women who have nowhere else to go for help become Krishna's Radhas, and how these Radhas are exploited by gurus preaching peace and spiritual progress, while also being preyed upon by NGOs who are shortchanging them by not giving them economic compensation and access to clothes, food, and resources that the government earmarks for the Radha's upliftment. We travel to places like Ujjain, where we see how the Devadasi tradition, once devoid of these exploitative acts, was an occupation of pride for the Mujra dancers. But now, these sacred women are reduced to take to the streets to beg or worse. In addition to meeting these women and NGO workers, we also meet Christian nuns and pastors who claim to be helping these survivors. But these pastors and nuns, in the name of saving these women, convert them into Christianity to gain access to the church's massive endowments made towards the growing Christian population in India. One of the most interesting aspects of this book, Sacred Sins, is how the interviews with many of the sex workers in the red light district, the women who were once Devadasis and then sold into prostitution by their temple patrons, these interviews show us how the women themselves view their new life and work in the flesh trade. While some women abhor their current existence, for many, this work in the flesh trade is a welcome relief that frees them from the tight grasp of abject poverty, where they were forced to go without food and water for many days, unable to feed, clothe, or care for their children. Although they admit that they are exploited by pimps and madams, some of the interviewed women echo that at least in the red light district, and unlike back at home, they have a roof over their head, get 3 meals a day, get access to money for their small personal indulgences, and have a place to keep their children well fed and looked after. Plus, there are NGOs that help educate their children too. And so some women feel that in some small measure, their current life is better than their old one. This makes us, the readers, realize that concepts such as decency, dignity, and morality, which are often associated with women in prostitution, are very much subjective to the lived realities of people experiencing these challenges. It is easy for us to be offended and appalled when our needs for food, security, and familial health are taken care of. As a reader, I realized that I should not and could not read these interviews with my privileged lens. I had to think of the women and their unique challenges and read these interviews through their lens. Unfortunately, this is something that the author Arun sometimes seems to forget. For his questions reek of male privilege, where he often bombards women with leading questions about why they just don't try to escape or leave, or why they wouldn't want to go back home to their real family, when in fact it is their real family who made them Devadasis or sold them into prostitution in the first place, their personal motivations or reasons notwithstanding. Is this really the short-sighted, privileged opinion of the author? Or is he trying to play devil's advocate to bring in more intensity into his story? At one point, the book stopped being an objective journalistic account, which it set out to do initially, and became a memoir and personal opinion essay of the author. It is such a shame, as in the latter part of the book, the author really struggles to even sympathize with the women's lived realities about why they feel that their life in the red light districts is far safer than their life back home as Devadasis. Overall, this book, Sacred Sins, by Arun Ezhuthachan and translated from Malayalam by Meera Gopinath, was a mixed bag read. It opened a door into the devastating Devadasi culture, which on paper is outlawed, illegal, and abolished, but which seems to be flourishing in small towns and villages even today. Yet, there was something lacking in terms of the absence of compassion, which, coupled with the author's leading questions, made some of the interviews hard to read. Still, I think this book, Sacred Sins, is a must-read for all Indians. We need more awareness among the public about the horrific Devadasi practice, so we may collectively protect our girls and women from the clutches of these appointed and self-styled godmen who prey on them and perpetuate some of the most violent crimes against the most vulnerable of our communities in the name of religion. Thank you for listening. This book review was written by Nisha Prakash and narrated by Nisha Prakash. Thanks for being here. This is Tales in Text. Bye.